Happy Halloween. Thanks for joining us here on your Monday. Brian will be back tomorrow. All right, headed into election season, the Secretary of State has a very important job to do, ensuring that Idaho has safe and secure elections statewide. But some activity on the internet runs directly against that mission, and they call it misinformation. Incorrect statements posted online about election dates, poll locations, of course, a lot more, you know that. But it's not just limited to basic fact checks, because some posts turn into disinformation, where intentionally incorrect information is used to craft a narrative. And the Idaho Secretary of State's office is asking for your help to push back against this. What does this all mean? Well, Andrew Bartline talked to the Secretary of State's office here today. And Andrew, it's a big topic nationwide. What are they looking for here in Idaho?
Well, it kind of starts with that discussion of how do you balance that line between free speech and then, of course, ensuring that this isn't harming anything with the election. That can be difficult. So what they're trying to do, when I spoke with Chief Deputy Secretary of State Chad Houck, he says that there's a portal now that exists. Now, what they're looking for in reports that people can give this to them, well, it starts with this with international and right here at home. Houck says people are pushing incorrect information. You can report that to them if you think it is harmful.
Let me give you an example. Just recently, there was a narrative floating around one of the counties here in the state of Idaho that you could not register on election day if your election day was early voting. And that's actually a false piece of information. So countering that, knowing that that conversation is happening in the social media avenues, it's not something you're going to go and erase, but it is something that you at least then know that you need to counter.
Coming up to this election, I see you guys have this resource out there, and I think to myself, I see stuff all the time that I have questions about. I'm going to report a few. So the first tweet, I sent you this earlier. He says, remember, currently, Republicans are anti-democracy. If this was reported to you, how do you guys even navigate this tweet?
So that one's actually pretty easy. Whether you agree or disagree with this particular gentleman's tweet, the things that he stated as fact that are factual based, the date of the election, those types of things, those are accurate. The remaining things in the tweet are opinion. And he's completely entitled to his opinion, whether or not someone disagrees with it, agrees with it, or otherwise. But again, this one's an easy one. It's not one we would necessarily want to have reported to us. It is something, though, that you need to look at and consider for yourself as an educated voter, whether you want to pass that information along. And that becomes the biggest part of the challenge, is when information that's just put out there gets passed along, it starts to actually gain some credibility because it might come from a different source that's actually more credible than the originator.
So this second tweet then, if you haven't heard, Idaho is a mail-in state, and they have already found bags of ballots in the river. Does this concern you? Is this something you'd want to be reported?
That's one we'd want to see. And again, that's not one we're necessarily, we're not looking at trying to take that down, but that's the type of change that we want to understand that are out there, the narratives that we want to see that are out there, because those are the things that do blow up into larger theories. I'm not aware of anywhere in our state that a bag of ballots has been found in a river, let alone a bag of marked ballots, which would be another clarification. It goes beyond that, and I'm not trying to split hairs, but no, that one's just straight up false.
Houck says this has been a growing problem since the 2016 election, where there's some evidence to suggest the Russian government attempted to influence American elections through social media. And there's other countries that have been involved in that too, North Korea, Iran, just to name a couple off the top of my head. But again, there's a problem here locally with that too, where people are continuing to spread information, whether they know it or not, that's incorrect. So they want to get out in front of it and try to stop that. They have that form up online where you can do so. Send the link, send a screenshot, things of that nature, so they can figure out where this is coming from and try to provide more information rather than censoring information, because that's sort of the trick. Not to censor it, but
right,
to provide additional context to where the truth might lie.
You just basically explained this, but I'm going to be very blunt here. They don't have the ability to remove things off social media.
No.
Correct?
No, they have relationships with a couple social media sites. I think Twitter and Facebook, he mentioned specifically when I talked with Houck, and they can have that conversation with them about things they're concerned about.
Good to know. And if you're looking to connect with this resource, Andrew will have more later on our website, ktvb.com. We get a lot of messages on the daily about misinformation. So I think this is the state hearing it and saying, okay, we're going to do something about it.
Absolutely.
All right. Andrew Bartline reporting for us. Thank you, Andrew.